And that is how you do the AQ Nightmare really nice and efficiently on the Demon Hunter, guys. This build here will be the best build in order to farm these guys. I've done so many hours of this AQ Nightmare here in the PTR, tested so many different builds, and this is by far the best variation I have found. Alright, so here in this video, I thought I'd bring a quick guide on how you can farm the AQ Nightmares. So the AQ Nightmares are actually fairly simple to do. You don't need a whole lot. As you can see, I have a character here. I'm going to show and gear and everything after the clear, but it's a fairly simple thing to do. And since you can of course see I'm fairly high Paragon, I have pretty good gear overall. I have, a decent amount of primals and good ancients, all that. I have removed all my parents, so I have a low dexterity. So you can of course do this with a much lower character than this. So of course you just put the petrified scream and hit transmute in the cube, and it would just go in. And it doesn't really matter what map you get or anything. It's just about using the pylons to your advantage, really. It's mostly about just how you optimize it. What I like to do is get one of each corner here, so you can take care of all the mobs spawning around the map. And then sometimes you want to go through and kill some of the portals that spawn in the corners. But basically, it's a fairly simple thing to do. I just go in the middle and have all my sentries do the work for me. And this is also why the Demon Hunter here is going to be the best class for doing this, by the way. Everything is just automatic. Everything just happens while you just stand in the middle. And all I basically just gotta do is just keep up my sentries and then just fire my multi-shot as much as I humanly can. And we're just rising the tiers quite quickly. What I like to do is taking the shield about 100 tiers or so. That's when the meteors spawn. They can do a whole lot of damage, these meteors here. They can be difficult to survive. So if you're just doing a soft core, just take your shield about 100, because that's where the meteors are, and you don't get one shot by those. And then it's just back to regular business of just killing these as fast as you can. Of course, the quicker you kill enemies, the more tiers you will skip. And the more tiers you skip, the higher you go in tiers quicker. This is also why Demon Hunter here, this build you're seeing right now, will be the best in terms of how to farm these quickly and efficiently. Because the immense wave clear is amazing. At about 120 or so, I take the power pylon. It is really nice to have. The monsters are now getting a bit more health, and it helps out quite a bit with that. Let's just continue on just farming these. We try and kill these portals that spawn in the corner if we can. At this point, they have fairly high health though, so it's not super easy. And we just farm this up a little bit longer. At about 130 or so, I can click the conduit as well. And it should line up pretty well with having the shield and the power and the conduit line up. So you get to 150 and then you want to end. Now, of course, early in the season, you just want to get to 150, but then later on, you want to optimize it. You want to get to 150, and then you either want to die, or you want to be overwhelmed exactly when you hit 150. Of course, that's on softcore. And hardcore, you might have to, not die, because you use the character and all that. But on softcore, you can easily time this out really efficiently. As you can see, at 148 or so here, I can just stop killing anything, and I'll get to 150, and the timer will run out. As you can see, I still have a bit of shield. My conduit's still running a little bit. So what I can do now is just go in the meteors and get hit by them. We're now at 150. So the timing there could have been a bit better. I could have died a bit earlier, or my timing of the shield could have been a bit earlier. If I had clicked the shield a few seconds earlier, I could have timed that to 150. But we got to 150 and then ended. We could have, of course, also continued to push that to a 170 or so if we wanted to. But there's, of course, no point in pushing it higher than a 150. Then, of course, just click the chest here. Get all the loot, all the incredible Paragon. And of course also the augment 125. And that is how you do the AQ Nightmare really nice and efficiently on the Demon Hunter, guys. This build here will be the best build in order to farm these guys. I've done so many hours of this AQ Nightmare here in the PTR. Tested so many different builds, and this is by far the best variation I have found. So let me show you how this build works. So to start off with, we are of course using the Marauder build, and we are then using the Multishot variation this time around. And of course, basically from the 6-piece here, sentries cast multi-shot when you do, and they also cast automatically once in a while. And you get a massive damage amplifier when you have all 5 sentries out. So basically try and always get sentries out, always press them to have 5 here summoned. And you of course saw the placement we had in the video just before. In terms of the gear, here we're using the Yang's recurve, and it's very important you get a high secondary. You want the multi-shot to do as much damage as possible. So get this as close to 200 as possible, 190 or above, I'd say. Then after that, of course, resource cost reduction fairly high, cooldown, percent damage. You don't really need the air damage I have here. You could also go with attack speed or even dexterity, but something like this works really well. Just have the cooldown and percent damage and you're good. For the quiver Bombardier's rucksack here, you don't need to worry about the secondary at all. It only increases the damage of the cluster arrow. It could be 150, it doesn't matter at all. The only thing you want here is the sentry damage. And of course, it also allows you to have 2 additional sentries, but that does not vary in terms of when it rolls or anything like that. So all you're after is the sentry damage and then all the other stats here. So you can see on the primal here, the sentry damage always rolled 100. And then after that, you want attack speed, crit chance. This area damage, I could have rolled that to cooldown reduction instead. That would have been a bit better. But something like this works really well. In terms of the rings, we're using the compass rows here, and ideally you would want a damage range, attack speed, crit chance, and crit damage. So basically like this, but remove the dexterity and a flat damage roll instead. But a compass roll can be really difficult to roll, so any of the following stat will do decently: attack speed, cooldown reduction, area damage, flat damage roll, and dexterity. Any of those combined with crit damage and crit chance is good. On the other ring, Ring of Royal Grandeur, and here you want attack speed and critical hit damage. And on your gloves, you want dexterity, crit damage, crit chance, and cooldown reduction. For the shoulders, you want to get a quad factor, i.e. you want to get all 4 stats without any of the normal stats like dexterity and stuff. You want area damage, cooldown reduction, resource cost reduction, and sentry damage. This might be tough to get, by the way, this item here with these stats. For the helmet, you can see I didn't even roll mine and I still blasted through the 150. You want multi-shot damage, not the cluster here. And you want crit chance and dexterity. And of course, we are socketing with a cooldown reduction gem. On chest piece, get sentry damage, get dexterity and vitality. On the belt, dexterity, vitality, all resistance, and % life. Same for the pants, dexterity, vitality, all resistance. And on the boots, again, get multi-shot damage, dexterity, vitality, and all resistance. Amulet using Traveler's Pledge here. Get fire damage, crit chance, and crit damage. And then for the last piece, Lacuni Prowlers, get fire damage, attack speed, crit chance, dexterity, vitality. And all of this works combined with our cube. So for instance, here in the weapon slot, we have the Dead Man's Legacy. This is of course a massive multiplier for the multi-shot. We have Cinder Code to reduce the resource cost of fire skill, basically allowing us to cast multi-shot non-stop. This combined with our skills and our passive give us full access to just blasting it all the time. No need for a builder, no need to stand around and wait to get resource back. You can just blast it all the time. And then squirts here for maximized damage. So basically this build, we're able to capitalize on the fact we can just stand still, we can just blast, and we have the shield pylon. So of course we have the squirts amulet here. So you've had 100% uptime of this basically when you click the shield pylon, and you have of course also the Indus Walk setup here. So tons of damage from these two combinations here. This is by far the best setup that I've tried, and this works really well. And then for the skills, Sentry Polar Station to freeze the mobs, and of course also to place them and they kill everything and they shoot a multi-shot. Multi-shot arsenal, these rockets that you fire every time you shoot, and they're able to pick off targets that are running away or hiding from you. And this is why multi-shot is probably the best spell in the entire game for running these Echo Nightmares, as they can just clean up the entire screen and these rockets will take care of the mobs that are trying to run away or hiding. Prep Punishment to give us hatred back. This spell here combined with some other things allows us to not play with a builder at all, so we can just focus on always firing more multi-shots. Companion, you get all the companions anyway, you don't need to pick a rune here. Vault Tumble to get around the map so you can pick off the targets and of course get to the pylons and all that. Vengeance Seed for 10 hatred per second regen. So the idea is you want the Vengeance Seed to run as long as you possibly can, and then you have your Prep and your Companion, and these both give you hatred when you press them. So if you have a Vengeance Seed up and running, we get 10 hatred per second. This combined with the amount of resource cost reduction we have will give us a ton of resource. I almost can't even fire enough to actually deplete my hatred. But if it then falls off, I can then use one of my spells or even both of them to get hatred back. So these two along with your Vengeance Seed will give you almost a permanent full charge of just hatred all the time, so you can just blast all day long. Tactical advantage to get around the map quicker, get more movement speed from the Vault Tumble. That way you can get to the pylons quicker, you can clear out the monsters standing in corners, all that. Custom engineering so you can have more sentries out. Ballistics to increase the damage of the rockets that you of course are firing from the multi-shot arsenal here. And then ambush here for a massive damage increase. Let me show you guys one more time what it means in terms of the pylon strategy, what I do. So always make sure to put out your sentries in each corner. Of course they will vary depending on the map, but always try to make sure you put the sentries out in corners, and then you just go in the middle where other sentries can see you, and then you want to stop just blasting. I always just click the channeling at the start of it because there's no point in saving it. You don't really gain a whole lot from this build by saving it, and just want to start blasting down. And then we're saving all the pylons for later on. We definitely want to save the shield, the power, and the conduit. And now we're going to get ready for the shield pylon. At wave 100 you're going to see the meteor spawn, and these do a lot of damage. So we want to make sure is that we have a shield pylon after this so we don't get one shot by the meteors. Of course we have flavor on the follow, so we have double duration of this. And then we simply just go back in the middle again. And then about 110, 120 or so, I click the power and the conduit. If you're doing this strategy and a bit lower in terms of Paragon and gear, you might want to delay the power and the conduit a bit longer. See if you can hold off for 120 or 130. Then I simply just go back in the middle here and start blasting again after clicking the two pylons. And this point is getting fairly difficult. They are getting a decent amount of health, so we can't really skip too many waves at a time, but we are still killing the monsters fairly quickly. So we are still going up in tiers really fast. Now what you want to do is you either want to time it so you get overwhelmed, or that you die when it goes to 150. You can do this by a few ways, of course. either by stop doing damage and you can just be overwhelmed by monsters, or you could have your shield Pylon times out. So you see for this map here and this kind of mob type, I should click the shield way earlier if I want to time it out to 150 and then I want to end. So it got to 157. So this one here was not super efficient. You of course want to time it a bit more, but that honestly just comes down to your Paragon and your gear. So I recommend trying a few different times in terms of when you are clicking the pylons. But at least make sure you have the shield before or at 100 so you don't get hit by the meteors. And then you of course want to time it either by getting overwhelmed at 150 or of course by dying on 150 if you're softcore. Don't do that in hardcore, by the way, you will lose the character. Now to follow and use the relics to gain access to our skills. That's because we're using the enforcer, so your pets take 90% less damage. And of course make sure you have 25,000 main stats, so intelligence for the enchanters here. So for instance, crafting intelligence gear on a class that use intelligence, or you can also do what I do and just simply augment some of it. This is really nice as it allows you to get 10% damage from amplification, 10% cooldown reduction from the harmony, of course also a lot of attack speed, and then also of course cheat death. Besides that, of course have a flavor of time to increase the duration of the pylons, and nemesis braces to spawn elites and pylons, and then of course also an oculus ring with 85% in secondary, so you get these rings you can stand in for more damage. Besides that, what I like to do is of course having 2 pieces of sage and 2 pieces of canes, and then a ring of royal grandeur. Now, of course, this won't apply to you if you're doing gradives, but I just like having these all around because I keep forgetting to swap between T16s and gradives whenever I swap my build, as the follower is not a link to your armory. So I usually just have this on all the time. If I'm doing T16s or gradives or pushing, just have this on all the time. It doesn't make a big difference all around. But you can, of course, also put on a Creech Flame instead of the Ring of Royal Grandeur if you are doing gradives or pushing, as it might allow you to get a bit more resource. And of course also try and make your follower as tanky as possible. Give it a good amount of vitality, dexterity, armor and all that. Give it a weapon gem so it's get life per hit. Because if your follower dies and you click a pylon without your flavor of time or nemesis up, that is bad news. Also make sure to check out my season 26 playlist here, as it will contain the best builds for season 26 for farming, pushing, Echo Nightmare. Basically anything that you might find interesting or useful will be linked in that playlist there. So see you there. Peace out everyone.